San Diego State gets ready for week number 2. They've got a fan fest this weekend, and we're inside of 4 weeks until the opener, 26 days away from San Diego State and Texas A&M Commerce. Paul, always appreciated, as you know. A weekend, I mean, what's different here? Anytime you have a new staff, things are going to change. What's different for San Diego State here under Sean Lewis that maybe we didn't see previously?
I mean, I think probably the biggest difference that you would see if you were out of practice and is, there's just different voices out there. Under Brady Hoke, Coach Hoke was always bouncing around a lot of time with the defensive line, showed tons of energy, was usually the first guy onto the field setting up things. But the loudest voices were typically the coordinators. And, was under Sean Lewis. It's Sean Lewis's voice that you hear in addition to the other ones. And so I think that might be, one of the things that you would hear the difference with. I think the other big piece of it is there's just a lot of routine that was normal under Coach Hoke and, Coach Long before him, and a lot of similarities with how they did things. And it's a new regime, and there's new kind of drills, new things that this coaching staff believes will teach the skills that they need. So overall, it just has like a different feel. And then I would say finally is just, I think because there was so much continuity, you kind of felt like there was a lot of known players and what they were capable of. And with this group, there's still so many new faces that it's just really unsure how they fit.
Paul Garrison with us right now, covers San Diego State athletics, including football for the East Village Times. You wrote about the talent level. I mean, there's been so much movement. It's not specific to SDSU, just across the sport. Anytime you have a first-year head coach, you're going to have movement. It feels as if even with all the player movement and coaching movement, they've been able to either maintain or add to their talent. Like, how do they stack up in terms of skill and talent with this roster heading into 2024?
Well, they clearly passed the eye test, eyeball test. If you were to go and, look at them last year, they're big, they're strong, they're fast, and they're the same thing this year. You look at every single position, and there's just players that just stick out as being world-class athletes, guys that just, like you would expect on a football team, at the Division I level, who just kind of defy logic. Marlon Lewis as an edge rusher is just 6'3", all of 255, and then runs. Owen Chambliss is a linebacker transferred from Utah, and he's 232. Looks it, but then he runs around like he's a defensive back. Deshaun McEwen, he is a defensive back, but he just is explosive and powerful, can, leap out of the building on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, there's just players. Jude Wolf is a tight end who can run and like a receiver, but also, has the size to just, be, really huge human being. Their offensive line is really big, but they can move. Their running backs, of course, as they've known for years, they're really, really special. And I am watching this group, and you just kind of wonder how they stack up. And one of the guys that we got to speak to afterwards was Chambliss, who came from Utah, who in the preseason poll today was the number 13 overall team. And so I asked him to compare them. I said, hey, how does the talent level that you see at San Diego State compared to what you saw at Utah last year? And he effectively said, it's a lot of competition. It's about the same. It could go either way, he said. And, I think Aztec fans who are trying to piece together this roster, I'm not really sure you could have much higher praise.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Paul Garrison with us right now from the East Village Times. So I want to say Sean Lewis has said something along the lines of, when choosing a quarterback, it's not just about their play individually, but which quarterback elevates the unit that is around them, gets the most out of the offense, most out of the skill, can put the team together in unison, so to speak. So this is the question Aztec fans want answered, obviously. It will be answered in due time. But A.J. Duffy and Danny O'Neal, it's as much about what they're able to do on field, but also what they're able to get out of their teammates, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I mean, this is the piece of it that I think we're all going to this fan fest going to be able to go and watch, because that's the piece of practice, that the media has not been privy to, how they've been doing in those environments and how they've been doing the live action. But I think that's exactly it. I mean, who's the player who can make the play action look like it's a run, but they're actually going to be passing? Who's the one who knows how to, audible into a run when, the pass was called? Who's the one who can do the RPO and make the correct read? Who's the one who can kind of throw a guy open? It's a results oriented game, and they chart every single throw, all of those things, and they're wanting to see production. And to your point, who's ever moving the offense is going to be the person who's going to play.
What's your biggest question about the defense? And the reason I ask is obviously with the offense expected to run many more plays, what impact does that have on the defense? And then therefore, what is your biggest question about that unit under Eric Schmidt, the new defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I asked Eric Schmidt that question on Saturday, and I thought his answer was pretty was insightful. He said that Sean Lewis is aware that his offense and running more plays can put the defense in a bad place. And so he said that there's going to be times where, even though they have the ability to play fast, that Sean Lewis is going to understand that they need to play at a better tempo to protect the defense at times. And he says other times it's going to be exactly like you described. And so they're trying to find depth. They're trying to bring up more athletes who can play and be able to sub in. And you look at, for instance, their linebacking group, and right now they have a 3 deep, and the group that is at the third team, you would feel fine if they were starting. And I think you're starting to see some of that. I think probably the biggest thing, it's I don't know if it's a concern, but it's just more a question. They seem to be very solid all across the board. And I think they even have good depth across the board. But the question is, who's the star, right? Who's the star in the defense? Who's the guy that the opposing offense is going to try to make sure that they can bottle up and they can make sure that person doesn't make plays? Who is the star that the rest of the pieces in the defense can play off of? And, I think that given the newness of everything, who exactly that's going to be is going to be uncovered in the first couple of games.
How critically important is it to have some guys that have played for Sean Lewis previously? Like, I'm looking at the offense. Jay-Sean Polk played at Kent State, has been a really good offensive weapon in his time in college. Marquez Cooper, we talked to the radio actually last week, is the nation's active leading rusher. Like, what role will players have that are familiar with what Sean Lewis is trying to accomplish play?
Well, I mean, I think it's twofold. I think before they even get onto the field, all of the players who have signed up to come back, who were on the roster last year, transfers who came over, they're really going to be able to do the things that they talk about. But Jay-Sean Polk and Marcus Cooper, like, they've experienced it. They've been high-level performers in these systems. And so I think before they even get on the field, they're not going off of faith. They're going off of reality. They're going off of what they have seen. I remember one of the first things I asked Marquez Cooper, I've talked to him a couple of times over the summer, and, he said he wanted to come back because when he was at Kent State, the hardest worker in the program was Sean Lewis. And he knew that, and he saw that. He knew that he was always working, trying to help his team get better. And so he wanted it to be able to be under that again. And so the fact that he has that history should make everybody else around him more confident. And then I think the other side of it is, there is going to be some sort of experience. This is how this looks. This is what this front is doing. And so we're going to attack it this way. And they have that muscle memory, and they have that experience. They have the actual memory of being able to do that. And so I think it's a invaluable thing. I think also, especially with Marquez, he's not a selfish guy. And so he's going to be able to tell a Keenan Christian, like, look, this is what you're looking for. Here's where this hole is going to open up. And I think all of those things combined make it invaluable that they were able to bring those guys in.
Yeah, really good insight from Paul Garrison with the East Village Times. One more for you, Paul, before you go. We talked about it briefly earlier. No group of 5 teams in the preseason top 25. Not that that's the end-all be-all. We know this year in the expanded playoff, there will be a group of 5 program in the college football playoff. But does it surprise you that no one, I mean, you look at some of the years that teams are coming off of and the expectations for teams coming into this year, someone like Boise State with all their bringing back. Does it surprise you at all that no Group of 5 program is in the preseason top 25?
It does a little bit. It always seems like there's one at the very, very end. But, I think that typically it's all about, returning production that obviously gets you ranked in the preseason. And because of the transfer portal, a lot of players have left all of the Group of 5 and went to the Power 5. And, Boise State, for all that they have coming back, they did lose their quarterback. They lost their top receiver. And so there's still question marks even around them. And so I think that in some way it's just kind of a reflection of the new way that college football is. But I think if you're sitting here and you're an Aztec fan and you're paying attention to, that question, I think it also speaks to how wide open everything is. San Diego State, I think the thing that came across to me being at their practice is they have enough talent to win every game on their schedule. Now, if they're going to be able to pull that together, obviously they're not going to be favored to do anything close to that. But the point is that there is nobody with incredibly high expectations that's going to be sitting on their schedule in front of them. And it could turn into a kind of memorable year kind of out of nowhere. And some of it is just because they figured out how to gel before the other teams were able to do that.
Paul, always appreciate it, man. We're excited. Like I said, less than 4 weeks out. FanFest coming up Saturday at Snapdragon Stadium. I'm sure we'll be in touch between now and the start of the season against Texas A&M Commerce. And thank you for joining us on John and Jim, as always.
Always, man. Look forward to see you Saturday.
Looking forward to it. Paul Garrison, great resource again for Aztec fans.